Well, to give you another reason why things are probably going to start changing here pretty soon, I start picking up on some other things, and I'm going to bring out some points. Some points you might not get from other sources too easily at all. At least I'm not going to play that cheerleader stuff left and right. But I also want to point out something. I was kind of harping on a little bit about some of the silver bloggers and stuff. I don't like a lot of that stuff. But like I said, there is a guy I always listen to. I got super respect for. He's been right many times, and that's Mark Faber. And, he'll never make crazy predictions out there. Like, I'll mention a name, it's James Turk of, Sprott, James Turk will come out and every time gold goes up $10, or I'm exaggerating, but, it's going to 8,500 eventually, and, he comes out with all this garbage. And you'll never hear these kind of statements coming out of Mark Faber. Now, one, I'm going to really put him in contrast. Yeah, he's a person that's, you can call him a physical gold bug, okay, Mark Faber. Just to get him, Mark Faber, the guru, I consider him worth listening to more than all the silver experts out there. Gold is money and money is gold, and buy gold and all this stuff, buy silver. He's doing the same thing, but I consider him worth listening to more than all the rest put together. Okay, so that's where I'm coming from. Now, maybe I think a little bit, or whatever he says resounds with me very well. But I'll give you an example how he contrasted greatly with the rest of the gold community. Now, Mark Faber has over 25% of his money invested in gold. It's in physical gold. It's in various countries. It's in various safes and stuff. So he's got a lot of gold. He's got a lot of his money invested in gold, physical, not the ETFs, physical, and various countries. But like last year, if you take August and early September, I think it was September 6th, gold hit 1921. I believe that was just doing this off the top of my head. Well, around that time, Mark Faber was saying, exercise caution. I think it's hit an all-time high. The market reacted. Not that he's saying it's not going to go up more sometime in the future, but he was saying at that time, back in when gold was hitting that all-time record back in August and September of 2011, that it might have a little bit of a pullback, and he was the only one saying this, unless you were one of the people that just don't like gold, But out of all the people that were into gold and have a lot of physical gold, he was the only one saying that. If you listen to any of these gold and silver channels out there, they were saying, the sky was falling, that gold was going to blast right through 2,000 like butter. It was going to definitely be at least 2,200 or 2,500. Some were saying 3,000, because the way they think is, as soon as something goes up, it's safe. Once something's really high, it's safe for me to say that it's going up more. And that's rotten advice. That's really rotten advice. And when something's going down, they're predicting $15 silver, not that $20 silver. The line in the sand is 18. They all think the sky's falling. Now, I think there could be a few things that upset the market to bring it below 26, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the markets and stuff and a couple other factors you're not even thinking of. I don't know if anybody's even spouting this because, I like to get on here and put out some things you're not going to hear from the normal spew of what they talk about on silver and gold. And I don't get into all these. I think there is an actual governmental thing to hold down the price of metals. Yeah, I think so. But I don't like getting into that because it's really not constructive. It doesn't tell me, it's almost like giddy little rumors and stuff. It may be true, but, it's like politics. That's what it really is. It's not giving you something substantial, I mean, like, for instance, I would rather know the price movement of oil versus Middle Eastern political events. I could care less about Middle Eastern political events. I'd rather know what the price of oil is going to do at specific times. To me, that's worthwhile, and I would act upon that. But you just don't get that kind of information. But one thing coming up. Now I'll go over this one first. Now obviously looks like things are pretty flat again. Oil's going up a little bit. Now take note, the Dow is over 13,000. S&P's around 1,400. It's probably over 1,400. This is a very interesting stock ticker, VIX, the volatility on the S&P 500. Now I'm showing it back 5 years for a reason. And you look what it is right now. It's at 13.7. Okay, 13.7. It's the lowest it's been in years and years and years. It's, you're talking, look what happened back here when things crashed. But usually when it's low, that means people are sitting all fat, dumb, and happy. They're happy that their stocks are high. They feel safe. So nobody's moving in and out. Nobody's panicking. Like what happened back here at the end of, the summer, basically August 2011. We had a nice dip back here, right? Things crashed off and stuff. Now what happened here in 2008, basically October, the volatility index went through the roof because people were, that's when everything crashed. That was the big crash, right? Well, I'm not going to actually say there's going to be a crash because this time, in this respect, but there would be a crash if we did not have Ben Bernanke to stop it. What I think is going to happen is these markets, like I said, they're artificially, something ain't right. Because like looking at all the other numbers out there, and I know I like this garbage index the best, but the reason I like that one is because that's down like as bad as it was back in 2008, which means the economy stinks. In other words, the more things that are being bought and sold and stuff, there's more stuff being thrown away. So the garbage index has like a fantastic correlation between the GDP. Now if you look at the GDP numbers, the GDP numbers for the US are high. So there's something wrong with those numbers. That's what I say. I think the garbage index is actually telling you what's going on. But that correlates with the primary manufacturing index, which is down globally. China, Europe, United States, it's been going down worse and worse. Everywhere is in contraction, not growth. They're actually in contraction. And number 3, we talked about the Baltic Dry Index, right? I rehashed these things before, but how does that add up with people feeling all fat, dumb, and happy just keeping the stocks and everything in the S&P and, everything's just great, right? Floating along because it's up kind of high. All the markets in the U.S. are up kind of high. The markets over in Europe, like in Spain or something, are down. They're all down. So what does that tell you? What's wrong with this situation? Every indicator out there is telling you something's wrong with the economy, yet the stocks are high. That's almost like the 1920s. But the difference is today we got Ben Bernanke. And I think there might be this, something's going to happen. And they ain't going to let a stock market crash right a couple months before the election or some garbage like that, or a month before the election, because that would be a lot of ammunition for the other side, the other side too. I mean, if you're an incumbent, you're going to somehow try to put pressure on, to keep the markets up. You don't want any kind of calamities where voters say, hey, look what this guy's doing to the economy or something, right? But this may happen, but what I say is Bernanke's going to actually interject, and just like he did in early August, he bought repurchased 600 million of securities. That's like a tiny micro mini QE. Though he was calling it a test of his readiness, to react to whatever kind of changes needed to be, reacted to. So he might. That's what I say is going to happen. You might see this pullback. Maybe the metals are like silver will go below 26, right? But he's not going to let it go low, because like when there's a problem with the stock markets, Ben Bernanke is going to act very quickly, and that's what's going to happen. So, what can very well happen is, this crash I think may be coming about, may not come about because of Fed policy. It might be a quick crash, and we'll see the metals start flying up. Nice music to people's ears that hold metals, but I'm not trying to tell you nice fuzzy things just to make you feel good. I think this is reality. Now, I'm going to point out two more things. Well, let me get on to the GDP subject again, which is actually in the one going on in Europe. I'm going to point out a couple more things. This is one of them. Overall GDP in Europe actually decreased by 0.2% over the last month, right? Which is bad. Bad news. But German GDP grew by 0.3%. Netherlands grew by 0.2%. But it's almost like the Northern European countries, pretty much the strong core countries or whatever it is, they pretty much grew by a small amount, which was great. And the countries that are in trouble, like Italy and Portugal, maybe I don't have Spanish numbers up here, but their GDP decreased. So this kind of really bodes bad for the euro because to hold it together, they're not going to want to agree on anything because some people are doing fine and some people aren't, and that's just the way it is. It's like you don't want to bother with people have too many problems and stuff like that, and that's basically the way this club is going to work out. Now, Mario Draghi was talking about they were going to shore up the euro and any type of, if they have any problems with countries selling bonds, they'll buy them, so that'll keep the interest rates low and stuff like that. But he wants them to go along with new policies being set by the ECB, right, or by the European Union, and that's going to be the concessions that are made. In other words, in exchange for us helping you out financially, you're just going to have to abide by the rules that we set, which actually means the loss of natural sovereignty on bit by bit. And I think that is actually the end game. But this deal with the euro ain't going to be ironed out very quickly in the future. It's going to keep going. Maybe I'm saying the obvious here, but this damn thing can actually cause a hell of a lot more problems in the markets than you think. So it's another monkey wrench coming up. So but you know what I think is going to happen? I think the only game is they're going to have to keep printing more money. They're going to probably keep shoring up all these countries more and more. The ECB is going to keep buying the bonds. They don't, in other words, even our Federal Reserve, they probably repurchase. They buy most of the U.S. debt. The Federal Reserve does itself, So that game is actually very bullish for the metals because in effect what you're doing is you're expanding the money supply. And actually, if you look at the price of gold priced in euros, it ain't too far off its all-time high. It ain't that far off of it. Not really. Not really. We're all here on this side of the Atlantic. I know I have you listeners in every part of the world, but I think most of the listeners are actually from the United States. But if you're looking at how the price of gold is in euros, it's doing pretty good, actually. It's doing pretty good. And, if I was in Europe, I'd probably be like 90% in metals for all I know. I might be 10% cash, 90% silver and gold if I was over there because I'd be very nervous about what's going to happen. And I probably should even be more in the metals the way things are going over here. Now, another interesting thing coming up, and this is relating to China, is actually this huge loan guarantee company. And I was talking about, there's like an underground economy. This is actually not even related to this is the above ground economy. It's called the Zhongdan Investment Credit Guarantee Corporation. It has over 3 billion yuan in loan guarantee contracts, and it's about to collapse. So the loan situation and the credit crunch situation in China is going to get a hell of a lot more severe. Now, also they talked about they have like an underground loan associations all over the place, and what they do is none of that stuff's on the books, and actually that's a major part of what actually is going on in the Chinese industry, right, in the loan industry. So if you see a collapse starting to happen, there might be a lot more repercussions going through even this underground loan industry, because where they get their money from is actually from the conventional banks, but what they'll do is they'll re-lend it out to people at a higher interest rate. So there's actually Even though China has a hell of a lot of money, they got some serious internal problems going on over there. A lot more than you would think. So I think what's going to happen is pretty much the only way out of this stuff is just like Mark Faber's been saying, is they're going to print money, 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 one way or the other. They're going to buy up bonds that are issued. They're going to stay afloat. They're just going to keep expanding the money supply one way or the other. Doesn't seem like it right now, but there's little hints of things stepping up a little bit. It's been staying pretty steady on the metals for a while. But, there isn't this big panic to go into the metals right now because they're boring. They're boring, aren't they? I mean, people, if you were actually in stocks right now and you held, various Apple stock or whatever the hell it is, whatever garbage people hold, you'd never convince them in a million years, why should I go into metals? Because it was up and then it went down. Now it's not doing nothing. Why should I do that, right? That's what they would say. I don't know. I say screw them. But anyway, it's not going to stay that way for very long. And, sometimes investing can be a very boring thing. And, that actually comes from George Soros. He says if it's very exciting, you're probably doing something wrong and you're probably losing money. Just investing is boring. In a lot of ways, it is boring, unless she's doing the investing for you sometimes. But, as far as, what's going to happen here in the near future, I think there's going to be something going to happen with the markets in general, the S&P. That volatility index is like, it's not a record low, but it's the lowest it's been in years and years. And it's kind of like a prelude to what happens before the volatility goes up. In other words, when the volatility goes up, there's a panic, which means people will be selling generally and the markets will be going down. And it does agree with all the actual real financial factors out there, which is the commodity index, which is down, the Baltic Dry Index, which is down, the manufacturing index, which is down, and also the garbage index, which is down, which means people actually aren't buying as much because they're not throwing away as much. So, but with Ben Bernanke at the helm, you might not. This guy is our best friend. He is. He's going to drive the metals way the hell up. Because if he interjects to save the stock market, save the economy. If other things that are looking pretty rosy right now start crashing, and he interjects a lot of money, well, you're going to see those metals fly. So it's good news in a lot of ways. Now, just remember that when things start heating up a lot, you're going to get the silver and gold exaggerators out there. Pay attention to Mark Faber. He gives you realistic advice. Say gold went up. He doesn't think, like Mark Faber doesn't think gold is going to hit a record high this year. I thought it would if we had the war with Iran. That's why I thought it would. But that was based upon the war with Iran. He thinks it's not going to hit a record high this year. That's probably legit. That's probably legit all the way. Because, if things are pretty calm, that's just the way it's going to stay. But if we have the attack on Iran or if Israel jumps the gun, I thought they were. If that happens, you might see oil would fly, gold would fly, and silver would start taking off too. Maybe you combine that with some other things going on with China, and China having to, do some more kind of easing to freaking relieve the situation with the credit crunches that's going on over there. And you see this going on everywhere. They're trying to relieve the situation in Europe because they got some kind of contraction in the GDP. Right? Actually, overall, in Europe, the GDP's been down 0.2 of a point over the last month. And you see problems that start to surface in the stock markets or some kind of panic, and then you got the problem with the stupid budgets coming up with the government, right? You start adding that all up, that's monetary expansion all over the place globally, right? And what are people going to do? What's all the freaking light bulbs going to go on at once in the world? They're going to start running into metals, aren't they? Just that, don't get too high of expectations, and be careful when things start heating up that these guys that are making these crazy predictions I don't know. You know, they're gonna, like, if silver went up to 75 or 70 or some garbage like that inside of no time, they're all gonna predict it's gonna bust 100. I know they are, and they more than likely, I would think they'd be wrong. Until it pulls back first and it takes another run up.